Are you tired of spending more money on clothes that just feel cheaper? Because so am I. In this video, I'm going to break down how to find high quality clothes so that we can shop better, buy less, and keep these items for longer. I think that regardless of your budget, whether you're purchasing new or pre-loved or fast fashion or from small independent brands, these are things that we can all look for. For me, high quality comes down to three main things. The first being what it's made of, the second being how it's made or how well it's made, and then the third is how it wears over time, which is kind of informed by how it's made and how well it's constructed. I value purchasing one or two incredibly high quality pieces that will last me for years to come over like 10 pieces of mediocre quality. When talking about quality over quantity, I think this leads me perfectly on to show you a few new pieces that I have from Idyl. Idyl are a very high quality jewelry company that produce lab-grown diamond pieces. I've been wearing their pieces for 3 years now. I got my first pieces from them in 2021, which feels like a lifetime ago now. And those pieces are still every bit as beautiful now as they were then. And I wear them quite frequently. Not only are Idyl pieces made to last, but their designs are really unique as well. All of their pieces are made to be mixed and matched so that you can continuously create lots of different looks. You start by choosing a stud. I have the petite studs with 14 karat yellow gold, and then I have worn them with the Ono add-on. Next to that, I have this mini Geo add-on, which is so cute. And then I also have on the Power ear cuff. I think this stack is perfect for festive season. It's really fun and bold. For a more everyday look, I have in the Leah add-on, which is this pear diamond, and then the Silas chain that connects my two other piercings. Even though it's slightly more simple, it's a combination that I always get compliments on. Idyl also do necklaces, so I have on this little Ava pear diamond, which matches the Leah add-on if you want to do like a matching kind of look. I hardly take this necklace off, and I think that's the beauty of wearing really high quality gold jewelry. It's not going to tarnish. So you don't have to take it off when you go to the gym or shower, which are things I do every day. These are luxury pieces that fit into your everyday life. Idyl is a brand that aligns with a lot of my values, and that's definitely a factor for me nowadays when I'm purchasing anything. They've chosen to use lab-grown diamonds instead of mined ones, as this causes less environmental damage to the earth. And due to their designs being so versatile, you really can get a lot of wear out of them. They're not pieces that you have to only keep for special occasions. They add so much to, you know, my everyday outfits. As we are in gifting season, every order made this December will come in a beautiful gifting box, and you'll also get a free luxury goodie with it as well. I got this really beautiful jewelry organizer. They're a company that really care about their product and their customers, and I think that really shows. Everything that I've shown you in this video will be linked down below, and you can also get 10% off with my code Adeline10. Thank you for Idyl for partnering with me on this video. Speaking of high quality materials, before we even start trying on any item of clothing, we should always look at the inside label to see what it's made of. I personally prefer natural materials because they feel nicer on my skin, they are more breathable, and they biodegrade faster than synthetic materials. However, I do want to start off this section by talking about synthetic materials because I think it's important to understand what they are so that we know why the alternative of natural fibers might be slightly better. I'm going to link the article that I have taken this information from because that article gives a much broader and detailed view of the cultural significance of synthetic materials, and I personally thought it was really interesting, like a lot more interesting than I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to link that in the description if you want to read it as well. So here is a brief history of synthetics. So what are synthetic materials? Synthetic materials are things like polyester, acrylic, and polyamide. And these are materials that are derived from fossil fuels and crude oils. Polyamide was first created in 1935 by the American chemical plant called DuPont. This synthetic fiber of polyamide was very silky, smooth, very pliable, and it kind of resembled silk. And by 1939, the first synthetic stockings were produced for the market. It wasn't until the 1940s that polyester was produced, and PET, which I have to look at my notes for this, polyethylene terephthalate, is the main plastic that is used in polyester. You might recognize PET as this is mostly associated with plastic bottles. That's what they're made of. And so when you are wearing polyester, you are essentially wearing plastic. The use of polyester grew in the 1950s as this was mostly blended to be in men's suits. Wash and wear suits and drip and dry shirts meant that housewives no longer had to spend their time doing the ironing, and this was praised as being like this magical fiber of the future. It's lightweight, easy to care for, doesn't wrinkle as easily, and doesn't stain as easily. In the 1960s, there was a boom in plastic production. This era was seen as the plastic fantastic phase. And it was during this time that competition for the production of polyester increased, which meant that it drove down the price. It became very cheap to manufacture, and by the 1970s, it was cheaper than cotton. In the 1980s, there was a boom in fitness culture. I'm sure we can all imagine those like retro fitness videos. And so the consumption of lycra and spandex sportswear increased. Even our gym clothes today are made of synthetic materials because they don't absorb sweat like cotton does. And it's a very durable material, so it can withstand like a lot of repetitive movements. And all of this sounds great, right? So why is wearing polyester or synthetic materials so bad? The super quick boom in popularity of polyester was also its downfall. The industry was led by quantity over quality, and so really bad quality polyester saturates the market. Yes, there is better quality polyester, but the majority of the polyester that we see is the bad quality one. It's interesting to note that the fast fashion industry probably wouldn't exist without synthetic fibers. When you wash polyester, it sheds microplastics into our water system. That enters the food chain as animals drink that water, and then we consume animals, so it ends up entering into us. As polyester is a type of plastic, it doesn't allow your skin to breathe. So yes, it might keep you warm, but it's not a nice kind of warm. You'll feel very hot and sweaty because it traps a lot of moisture. It's also really prone to hanging on to odors. So it will make you really hot and sweaty, and then it will just hang on to your sweaty smell as well. Factories that produce polyester also release a lot of dangerous chemicals into the environment. These synthetic materials also don't biodegrade like natural fibers, and so they will sit in landfill for years to come. So for all these reasons, I personally try and stick to natural fibers. Fibers such as cotton, cashmere, wool, silk, hemp, linen, to name a few. I've probably missed out a few. For the sake of keeping this video concise, and because we are in winter time, I am gonna focus on cotton, cashmere, wool, alpaca, and mohair, which are the fabrics that I wear the most during this time of year. So let's start by talking about cotton, as that is a very common fabric to wear all year round. Cotton is very breathable, it's very durable, and it's also anti-static, so it won't like cling onto your skin when you wear it. As with all materials, there is better and worse quality cotton. Most cotton is made from upland cotton. That is the most common type of cotton. 90% of global cotton production is made with this type of cotton. Then we have organic cotton, which is grown without pesticides, uses less water, and is seen as the more sustainable option for cotton. Organic cotton might suit you better if you have sensitive skin, as there are less chemicals used in its production. And the good thing about organic cotton is that the term is regulated. So you have to be certified to use the term organic cotton. Certifications to look for are the Global Organic Textile Standard or the Organic Content Standard. For very high-end cotton, there is Pima, Supima, and Egyptian cotton. These are considered high-end cotton because the fibers are much longer than regular cotton. This results in fabric that feels smoother and softer. And the fibers are also stronger than regular cotton, so there's less pilling and less fraying. They're also much better at holding onto color, so they don't need as much harsh dyes and chemicals to get it looking a certain way. Pima cotton is derived from the Pima cotton plant, and this is mainly grown in the US, Peru, and Australia. Supima cotton is a type of Pima cotton that is exclusively grown in the UK and is certified. This ensures that the cotton is genuine and meets very strict standards. Egyptian cotton is made in, yes, you've guessed it, Egypt. It's from a certain cotton plant that's grown along the River Nile, and the soil there has some very unique properties that are really well suited for growing this plant. However, as consumers, we need to be aware that not everything that's labeled Egyptian cotton is the real deal. Annoying, I know. Once manufacturers and retailers realized that we were after, this very high-end Egyptian cotton, they started to be very sneaky, and they stretched the name to mean any cotton that is grown in Egypt, Egyptian cotton that is blended with cotton from other countries, or cotton that is grown from the same cotton plant as the one in Egypt, but grown in any other country. To make sure that you're purchasing authentic Egyptian cotton, you can look for the Egyptian cotton trademark logo. And I think just have your wits about you when you're shopping. If a price for a really high-end cotton is too good to be true and it's too cheap, then it probably is too good to be true and you're not getting the real thing. Cotton is a really versatile fiber that can be weaved into lots of different materials. For example, flannel cotton, a really soft brushed cotton. Think your really soft flannel shirts that keep you warm. This is due to the air that gets trapped in the fuzziness of the cotton. Denim, we all know, are denim jeans. I personally like my jeans to be 100% cotton for that really stiff denim feeling. I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, that really rigid feeling. So another common combination to look out for jeans is 98% cotton and 2% elastane. This will give you a little bit of stretch, so it will be more comfortable, but it also still washes really well as it can hold its shape. Then we have canvas, that really thick, durable fabric that's used for handbags or shoes. Corduroy can be made out of cotton, but it can also be made out of a lot of different synthetic materials too. So if something feels like corduroy, always look at the inside label to make sure that it is 100% cotton. Poplin cotton is very common in shirts, so it has that very smooth feeling and slight sheen to it. When shopping for good quality cotton, I think you can often feel these things for yourself. It should be soft and smooth. Remember, the longer the fibers are, the more high quality it is, and so the smoother it should be. It shouldn't be transparent unless, it's been deliberately designed that way. Pay attention to the weight of the fabric as well. Something that's thicker will be more durable through wears and washing. If you are shopping online, it is a little bit harder to tell how good or bad something might be. But one trick with t-shirts in particular is to pay close attention to the hem of the t-shirt and compare how opaque the hem is to the rest of the t-shirt. If there's a really massive difference, if the hem looks really white and opaque compared to the rest of the t-shirt, then you can probably assume that that t-shirt is not very thick and probably poor quality. Moving on to cashmere. So cashmere is one of my favorite fabrics to wear all year round actually. I've got really chunky, thick cashmere jumpers for winter, slightly thinner ones for autumn and spring. And then, sometimes even during the summertime, I will carry around a thin cashmere cardigan with me just in case it gets cold. It's a very soft and luxurious fiber that comes from the undercoat of cashmere goats. The quality of cashmere is divided into grades, and this is based on the diameter of the hair. The finer the hairs, the higher the quality of the cashmere. So we have A grade, which is the best quality. This is when the fibers are 14 to 16 microns in diameter. It also has the least percentage of short fibers in the yarn. This is the most soft and luxurious cashmere, and it's also the most expensive. Then we have the B grade, and this is when the fibers are 16 to 18 microns in diameter. Still very soft, but slightly less expensive than A grade. And then lastly, C grade, which is when the fibers are 18 microns in diameter. This is more affordable, but more likely to pill quicker. When it comes to ethical cashmere, there are a few certifications to look out for. One is the Sustainable Cashmere Standard. Then we have the Good Cashmere Standard, and also the Global Recycling Standard for recycled cashmere. Let's quickly talk about pilling. So all natural fibers, regardless of what they are, will pill. That is just the nature of natural fibers. It's the fibers rubbing against each other that causes pilling. But how quickly or how much a piece will pill depends on the quality of the fibers. Poorer quality cashmere has fibers that are shorter, and so they're more prone to pilling quicker. If you see a jumper on the shop floor and it's already pilling or a little bit fuzzy, then I think that is an immediate sign of something that's poor quality, as someone hasn't even worn it yet. And wearing it is just going to make it worse. Here I have a comparison of a new cashmere piece from Uniqlo that I bought in September versus a cashmere piece from COS that I got 2 years ago. It's actually the one I'm wearing right now. You can see how fuzzy the texture is from the Uniqlo one, even though it's a brand new piece, compared to the COS one that I've had for years now and I've worn many, many times. And then comparing that COS one to this Lisa Yang cashmere cardigan that I got on sale a few years ago, I think in terms of how they look on camera, they are quite comparable. But I wish you could feel how soft the Lisa Yang one is in person. It's so much softer than the COS piece. So I do think that for cashmere, unless you're buying pre-loved, you do get what you pay for. The Uniqlo one is the least expensive, but the most fuzzy, and I haven't even worn it that many times. COS one, I think COS is pretty good cashmere for the high street. And then my most expensive cashmere piece is this Lisa Yang one, which is honestly like the softest cashmere I've ever experienced. So moving on to wool now. Technically, cashmere is a type of wool, but just for the clarity in this video, when I'm talking about wool, I'm specifically talking about sheep's wool. Wool is a lot stronger and more durable than cashmere. However, wool contains lanolin, whereas cashmere doesn't. And so if you have sensitive skin, you might not be able to wear wool. When it comes to wool, there are three main types. You have sheep's wool, which is the most general type of wool. If something is labeled wool, then we can assume that it's most likely sheep's wool, which is wool that is taken from a mature sheep. Sheep's wool is very thick and durable and textured. However, due to its slightly coarse feeling, again, if you have sensitive skin, you might not be able to wear it without feeling a bit itchy and irritated. And this is the most affordable type of wool. Next, we have lamb's wool. And this is wool sheared from a lamb that is under 1 year old. This is much softer than regular sheep's wool because the fibers are shorter and softer. And this is more expensive than sheep's wool. Lastly, we have merino wool, which is considered the most high quality. This comes from the merino sheep, which has ultra fine fibers. So the material is very smooth and soft. It's insulating while still being very breathable and temperature regulating. And this is often the most expensive option for wool. Whichever one you choose depends on your different needs. For warmth and durability, choose sheep's wool. If you find wearing wool itchy, I would always advise wearing a layer underneath, like a t-shirt. I mean, I think you should always wear a layer underneath all your knitwear anyway. This will also prevent you from having to wash it so often, as it's actually the process of washing your clothes that wears it down, not the actual wearing of it. I got this 100% wool Aran knit cardigan from Nili Lotan a while ago. I got it on a really good sale. It's so thick and beautiful, such a classic piece. I love wearing it. It keeps me so warm. For something softer but still warm, lamb's wool is a really great choice. I recently got this cardigan from Ann Daughter, and it is 100% lamb's wool. The quality of this cardigan is so amazing. It is thick and so luxurious. I was shocked at how soft it is. It's actually comparable to my cashmere pieces, I would say. And then merino wool is really great for base layers and is a really versatile material, I find. I have a few merino wool sweaters for different uses. So the first one I have is this very thin base layer that I got from COS. You can wear it just under anything and it will just keep you so warm. Then I have these merino wool jumpers from Uniqlo that are slightly thicker. I love these and I wear these all the time. I think these are such a great basic. And then I have this slightly thicker one from a Korean brand called Nothing Written. This is also 100% merino wool. And you can see that it's thicker and fuzzier. I haven't depilled it since last year. When shopping for wool, you want to look for certifications such as the Responsible Wool Standard, Nativa, and the Woolmark certification. These ensure that the wool that you're purchasing has been sustainably and ethically sourced. Wool and cashmere can also be woven to create a double-faced fabric. So most fabrics have a right side and a wrong side, but double-faced fabric is when two layers of fabric are sewn together so that both sides are the right side. You might have seen this on some coats that don't have a lining. Generally speaking, lining isn't needed on double-faced fabric as the double-sided material is really warm. The lining can sometimes also alter how the coat might sit on you. It might not drape as nicely if it has a lining. I find that some coats might just be lined in the top half and the sleeves so that you can get in and out of it easier, and then that won't alter how it kind of falls. Generally speaking, double-faced, wool and cashmere is a higher quality because of the technique that's used to make it and sew it together. Although not always the case. I have seen some double-faced jackets and coats in Zara, but obviously they're probably not as well made. Other types of wool include alpaca and mohair. Mohair comes from Angora goats. It's known for being very soft, its luster and its durability, which makes it a really popular material for high-end pieces. It also has a very natural elasticity so that it can retain its shape, and it's more resistant to wrinkles. It's lightweight while still being very insulating, so that means you can keep very warm without being too bulky. Due to its really high cost, a lot of brands will mix it with wool. It's very rare to find like a 100% mohair piece. And in terms of quality, there is kid mohair, which is taken from goats that are under 1 year old. This is the most premium mohair and it's the most expensive as it's like very fine and luxurious. And then there is young goat mohair, which is taken from slightly older goats. This is still very soft, but it's more durable than kid mohair. And then lastly, adult mohair is taken from more mature goats, and this is much more durable and so more suited for things like coats and outerwear. In terms of quality, mohair has that very fluffy texture, and all mohair will shed. It's sometimes hard to determine the quality of mohair just by looking at it, but lower quality mohair will shed a lot more than higher quality. Lower quality mohair might also feel a little bit itchy and scratchy on your skin, whereas the higher quality one is a lot softer. And then lastly, we have alpaca, and this comes from the alpaca animal. It's similar to cashmere in that it's incredibly soft and smooth, and it's actually warmer than wool because the alpaca fibers have a hollow core, and this traps air more efficiently. And the air acts as an insulator, which keeps you warm. There are two main types of alpaca. The first type, which is the most common, is the Wakaya alpaca, which make up for about 90% of all global alpaca population. And then the remaining 10% is made up of Suri alpacas. Wakaya alpaca is more dense and fluffy, which is best for everyday wear such as sweaters and scarves, whereas Suri alpaca is sleeker and more streamlined, and so better suited for luxury garments or pieces where the drape of it matters a lot more. So those are the main natural fibers that I want to cover in this video. If you found that interesting and you want me to cover more, then let me know in the comments. How much natural fiber content you want in your wardrobe will depend on your needs, your preferences, and your budget. For myself, I'm quite strict when it comes to knitwear. I like my knitwear to be in 100% natural fibers. However, for other things such as trousers or skirts, I am a little bit more lenient, but I'll always try to make sure that the natural fibers make up for at least 70 to 80%. So now that we have discussed high quality materials and exactly what to look for, that is only one piece of the puzzle. The next part is how well the item of clothing has been constructed. When it comes to the construction of clothes, these are things that I've personally noticed within my own wardrobe. And to be honest, these are things that I think should be the bare minimum. But unfortunately, a lot of brands these days only care about their profit margins. And so the best thing that we can do is to shop as smart as possible. So let's start with the fit and the drape of an item, because a very big sign of how well something has been made is just how it sits on your body and how it looks on you. You should be able to move freely and comfortably in your clothes. You shouldn't feel that anything is like too tight or restrictive. You know, even in nice fitting tailored clothes, you should still have room to breathe and eat. That's very important too. If you tug on a bit of fabric, it should stretch out a little bit because that will allow it to move with you as you move throughout the day. But it should also be able to go back to its original shape. You shouldn't be able to stretch it out permanently. Things like shoulder seams should be aligned with your shoulders. They shouldn't be too far up or too far down. Otherwise, they'll be pulling at you. For us women, we need our tops and our shirts to have allowances for our bust. So either that means extra material or like darts put in so that there's space for our boobs to sit. And if you're wearing a shirt, there shouldn't be any gaping at the buttonholes either. Otherwise, that is also just too tight or just poorly constructed. When it comes to skirts and dresses, is it cut on the bias? This is when the fabric is cut at a 45-degree angle against the grain of the fabric. This gives it a much nicer drape. I personally think it looks better than something that is straight cut. A bias cut dress will just kind of sit on you in all the right places, and one of my favorite dresses is a bias cut silk dress. It's a piece I've had in my wardrobe for like 6 years, and whenever I don't know what to wear during the summer, I pull this out and I'm good. When it comes to knitwear, you want to make note of the ply and the gauge. Not all retailers will give you this information, but I personally find that the ones that do are, generally speaking, better quality. So the ply refers to the number of yarn strands that are twisted together to make the thread that creates the garment. A one-ply jumper is going to be very thin and delicate. I would advise staying away from anything one ply. Ideally, we want to look for pieces that are 2-ply or more. That will mean that your piece is warmer, it's thicker, and it's just more durable. And then the gauge refers to how many stitches there are per inch, and this determines how tightly or loosely something is knit. If a sweater has a low gauge, for example 3 to 7 stitches per inch, then this is often paired with a very thick yarn, and you'll get a sweater that is very thick and chunky, and you can clearly see the big stitches, and it's very thick and heavy. And if we compare this to a sweater that has a very high gauge, so something that has like 13 stitches per inch. The yarn used with this high gauge is normally much thinner, and so this creates a sweater that is very smooth and lightweight. Inspect your seams. If you see any loose threads or anything unraveling, then that is an immediate sign of poor quality, especially if you see this on the shop floor when you're shopping. This item hasn't even been worn yet. Why is it falling apart already? If the seams seem flimsy or messy or wonky or uneven, then not only is this a sign of bad quality, but it's also going to affect how the item looks when you're wearing it, as it won't sit how it's supposed to. And it probably won't last through many wears and washes if the seams have been put together a bit haphazardly. To test your seams, you want to pull on them gently, obviously not too hard. Badly stitched seams will also have a lot of holes and gaps. So again, if you stretch it apart slightly, maybe hold it up to the light, and if you can see lots of light coming through, then again, you know it's not been put together very well. You also want to turn your pieces inside out and see how that looks. I have this pair of trousers that have been finished so beautifully on the inside. You can see that the edges here are finished with an overlock, which is a very common stitching that has like all these small loops. And most, if not all, edges should be finished with this stitch. Again, just at the bare minimum. You can also see that the edges of the back pockets were finished with this extra detail and that kind of like extra bit of fabric on top. I'm sure there's a technical name for it. I think it's a French seam, but I'm not entirely sure. If you know, please leave it in the comments below because I would love to know what it's called. But I really love how they finished off everything on the inside of these trousers so nicely. Compare it to the back pocket from another pair of trousers that I have, and you can really tell the difference in the quality. Seams should also sit flat against the fabric, so when you lay it down or when you wear it, there shouldn't be any like bunching or puckering at the seams either. Also pay attention to the inside seam on the back of your t-shirt, on around the neck. A high quality t-shirt will have a reinforced back seam on the inside of the collar. This will stop the neckline from stretching out over time, and it will also just feel nicer on your neck when you're wearing it. It's in all these extra like care and details where you can really tell if a brand actually cares about how you feel when you're wearing the piece, or if they just want to produce as many pieces as possible and make as much money as possible. Patterns should match up as much as possible. For the most part, patterns should match up, especially if lots of straight lines are being used. However, there will be some places where it's not entirely possible to exactly match up the pattern, especially if there are like curved hems or anything like that. But I do think it should still match up as closely as possible. There should still be some attempt at matching up the pattern. I think if the pattern is really off, then, you know, we can assume that they just don't care and they just haven't put the time in to make it look as nice as it could be. Always test your zips. The zips should be smooth and easy to use. You should never have to like fight with it to try and get it up, because then that is probably a sign of a poor quality zip. I think that for the most part, the zips should be hidden and sewn into the fabric. I personally think that a visible zip cheapens the look of the whole garment, and it's also cheaper to do, so you know, they kind of match up really. Buttons. Buttons are such a big sign of how well an item has been made. Buttons should properly line up with a buttonhole. I know that sounds so obvious, but I've seen some really bad fast fashion pieces where like the button doesn't match up properly with its buttonhole. The buttonholes should be reinforced with thread or with like extra material so that it doesn't wear with use or stretch out, and it should be neatly done with no loose threads coming off it. The buttons should be stitched on tightly, and they should have extra thread wound underneath the button. This makes it stronger, and it also leaves space for the material that you are buttoning up. On some really well-made coats, I think that you can find the button on the outside is reinforced by a little button on the inside. This makes the button a lot harder to fall off. Really high quality buttons are normally made of mother of pearl or buffalo horn. For me, a plastic button is not a deal breaker, but it has to be a good plastic button. The button should complement or enhance the piece that it's on. It shouldn't just be there. And a lot of cheap plastic buttons will be very flat and one-dimensional. Whereas you can tell if a button has been chosen specifically for an item. It will have, you know, some kind of dimension or color or pattern to it that complements the whole item. Unfortunately, a lot of lining these days is still made out of synthetic fibers, so it's very frustrating. You know, you'll buy a 100% wool blazer only for it to be lined in polyester. It's very common. I think viscose is becoming a bit more common to line clothes with, but again, this is still a semi-synthetic fiber. My favorite blazers are from the Curated, and they are lined in silk. And honestly, it is the most luxurious experience to wear. Again, always inspect how the lining has been sewn into the garment. It should be neat. It should sit flat against the coat or jacket or whatever you're looking at. There should be some excess fabric so that it moves with you when you wear the jacket, but there shouldn't be so much excess that it's kind of like just hanging off, because then that's a sign that the lining hasn't been graded for the different sizes of jackets. They've just used one size and stuck it on all of them. But again, the inside of your coat or your jacket or your blazer should be neat, and that is another sign of a good quality piece. Lots of fast fashion retailers will do anything they can to cut corners in production. This includes putting in fake pockets that you can't use, or fake buttons that don't do anything. For a fake pocket, you might have like a flap or a little slit that looks like a pocket, and it's completely unusable. It's just there for show. And the same with fake buttons. It's just sewn there for show. It doesn't actually do anything, and it just looks unbelievably cheap. However, most pockets in high-end items will be sewn shut with a single thread, and this will be very easy to unpick and pull out the thread. They do this to maintain the shape of the garment when it's being moved around, and it's also there to protect it from damage or to protect it from being stretched out before the item has been sold. So with all that being said, how can we shop better? Firstly, always check the inside label. I cannot tell you how many times I've been to a shop and the outside label will say cashmere or wool, but when I look at the inside, it's like only 5% cashmere or only 10% wool. Unfortunately, brands these days will do anything they can to try and trick you into thinking that it's a much higher natural fiber than it actually is. Use your better judgment. We did cover this a little bit earlier, but if something is too good to be true, then it probably is. A cashmere jumper that costs £40 might not actually be worth it. It might be a really poor quality cashmere, and you also have to ask yourself, who is paying the price for these extortionately low prices? Is it underpaid farmers? Is it underpaid garment workers that are working in the factories? Somewhere along the line, someone is losing out because that price is too good to be true. I do think that if we want to search for high quality pieces, you do get what you pay for, and the more you pay for something, then it probably will be higher quality, but only to a certain extent. I do think that there is a limit to how expensive something should be. What that limit is kind of will vary from me to you, but once you hit that limit, I think that you're paying for branding, you're paying for marketing, you're paying to wear that certain brand. Take your time when you're out shopping, take your time when you're inspecting items. Don't feel pressured into buying something you're not 100% sure about. There are so many clothes out there in the world that you're never gonna miss out on something. There's always going to be something that you want to buy. I also think that it's supposed to take a long time to build your wardrobe full of high quality pieces that will last you for years. It's kind of like buying furniture for a house. You take the time to inspect it. You make sure that it's made of materials that is going to last you a long time. You make sure that it fits in with your space. You make sure that it goes with the other pieces of furniture that you have. And I think you should feel the same way about your clothes. Check your return policies. I know that a lot of us shop online, myself included, so make sure you check the return policy. Don't just assume that it's 30 days, it might be 14 days. And believe me, I have been burnt by that in the past. So please don't make the same mistake as me and always check how long you have to return something. Look for specialist retailers. So this is going to be a bit of a weird analogy, but stick with me. Imagine you are ordering a pizza from restaurant A, which is a huge chain. It has a 30-page long menu with dishes from all different cuisines from all over the world. Compare that to ordering a pizza from restaurant B, which is a small family-run Italian restaurant that specialize in making pizza. They have a specially built wood-fired oven in the back, and their ingredients are very concise and fresh. Which one do you think is gonna have the better pizza? Restaurant B, right? And I think the same goes for clothes. If you wanna buy a really high quality cashmere sweater, then you're probably better off going to a brand that specialize in cashmere knitwear. They're gonna have more knowledge in the yarn that they're sourcing, in the factories that they're choosing to work with. I think that being really good at producing one type of thing is going to give a better result than producing a myriad of mediocre things. Read brand websites. This is not a foolproof method, but I find that the brands that are the most transparent about where they source their, I keep wanting to say ingredients after that restaurant analogy, but that's not right. A brand that tells you about where they source their materials, which factories they use, what their sustainability plans and values and goals are. Those are the brands that are going to be more likely to produce a more high quality item. The more detail that a brand can give you about their items, about the whole supply chain, then I think it shows how much more they care about their item, and they're not just like producing things for the sake of it, you know? Your own goals and values. So I think when it comes to shopping, there's no right or wrong answer. Not all synthetics are bad. Not all natural materials are good. It's not so black and white, and I think you just have to find, you know, what works for you. At the end of the day, it just comes down to what your wardrobe goals are and what your personal values are. If you don't mind wearing polyester, or your skin is sensitive to wool, or your budget means that you can only afford to buy things that are synthetic, then that's fine too. But at least make sure that the item you're buying is really well made. That way, it's more likely to be an item that you want to wear more. It will be an item that you can keep for longer, or at least it will be an item that you can sell on to someone else, because it's still a piece that is really well put together. I have spoken so much that I feel like I need a throat lozenge, but I also feel like I've barely scratched the surface. If there are any tips or anything that you do or look for that I've missed out, please leave them in the comments so that we can all learn how to shop better together. If you enjoyed this video and you want to know where to buy high quality knitwear, you can watch this video on screen. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.